listening to the First City Lax podcast, brought to you every week from the Florida Panhandle. Coach John and Coach JP explore the best and worst of lacrosse on the Gulf Coast. So strap your helmets on and let's go.
And welcome back, everybody, to First City Lacrosse. I'm your host, Coach John. Coach JP is sick today, but he will be back with us just as soon as he possibly can. And I am very pleased to introduce our guest for the week, Coach Justin Van Tassel from Maclay High School. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So when we were talking a little bit beforehand, you and I were just kind of discussing some basic philosophies on lacrosse, and we're going to get into that, the whole sportsmanship, the physicality, the competitive nature of it. But before we do, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, what got you into this, how long you've been coaching, and things like that.
Yeah, so I think my lacrosse career as a player, everything started back in the early 90s. So been doing lacrosse for about 35 years now, which is just absolutely crazy to think about. But yeah, I grew up in Michigan. My high school had lacrosse back in the 1970s. So it wasn't like an unknown. It was a very well-known sport. And our lacrosse coach was actually the football coach. So I went into high school playing football as number one, and he just basically handed me a stick. And he's like, nope, you're playing lacrosse. And just fell in love with it right away. I was the only freshman to make varsity at my school. We had a freshman team, a JV team, and a varsity. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and it was crazy. Like right before the first game, pulled me up, and I just fell in love with the game and have been involved ever since. Played all through high school. I was an All-American my senior year. I was an attackman. Loved playing attack. Then I went on to college, and I chose a small school, which is actually kind of cool. Because so many kids today, especially at Maclay, they think like D1 or bust.
Right.
And I went to a D3 school where I could do football and lacrosse. And that was kind of what I always wanted to do. I still always had a passion for football. Loved lacrosse. I was a big lacrosse recruit, but I wanted to play football. Went where I could play both. A great decision. Had a great time. I went to Defiance College in Northwest Ohio. And it was awesome. And then, from there, after that, I immediately started coaching, went back to Michigan, coached a couple of years at Troy Athens High School, a pretty powerful program up in Michigan. And then moved to Florida and started coaching in South Florida. And now I've been in Tallahassee for 8 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Cool. Quite the resume. And you said something that really kind of struck me because it's something that I've struggled with here. Now, as you know, and most of the people that listen know, that I do not have a lacrosse pedigree at all. Like I started coaching lacrosse because my kids got into it early, and then one of my boys said, "Hey, I think I want to play lacrosse," and I was like, "Great, let's play lacrosse." I knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
And so I decided that the best way to learn was just jump in and learn. So we found a lacrosse program, and I started coaching, and the rest is history. You talked about how you originally wanted to play football, and then your coach handed you a lacrosse stick also. And so you were a multi-sport athlete basically all through high school and all through college. Is that right?
Yeah, so in high school, my freshman, sophomore years, I did football, basketball, lacrosse. And then junior, senior years, I did football, wrestling, and lacrosse. Always a three-sport athlete. That's pretty much all I knew. The best thing that came out of that was time management, which was the most important skill I ever learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, then going on to college, I didn't know how to give up a sport. And that was really my struggle. I was actually committed to go play at Air Force for lacrosse. And I had an appointment from the senator. Everything was all set. I was really pushing their football coach hard to, give me a spot on the team. And he just wasn't having it. I guess it wasn't as good as I thought I was. And, it kind of was a little eye-opening to go, not pass up on D1 lacrosse to go really do what I loved. And I loved playing sports all year round. I've always done it. And play football and then play lacrosse, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I found in this area, at least, is that we don't get a lot of multi-sport athletes. We get a handful, but it's really hard to get football players for some reason for us. I think maybe it might be the area or something like that, but lacrosse is still so new. I think there might be some coaches out there who aren't familiar with the game and don't understand the concepts, or maybe they think it's not the game they think it is, and it's not as physical, and the conditioning isn't as much as they might think it is. But
what I've found what I found is a lot of football coaches think like off-season lifting is more important,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously they haven't seen a lot of lacrosse. And if you look at the
Yeah.
Bill Belichick model, I mean, Bill
Oh,
Belichick's
yeah.
recruiting lacrosse football guys,
Yeah.
and from the Northeast, almost everybody does football and then lacrosse, and then
Yeah.
you come down here and it's football, 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 and
Mm-hmm.
it's a struggle. When I was at a big public in South Florida, I was at Martin County High School.
Mm-hmm.
I did not get a lot of football players. I hardly got any.
Yeah.
And that's the blessing of being at Maclay is I get multi-sport athletes.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have some athletes. We got to see those on the field the other day. That was
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you've done a great job. I mean, the other coaches and I, we agree on that. And just so everybody knows, I coached my team against Justin's team here just a couple of days ago, and they really took it to us. We've got some work to do for sure. They've got, you got a very athletic team, and we remember you playing you guys for the last couple of years, and say 2 years ago we played you, and we were just like, they're gonna absolutely slay in 2 years.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you guys are. I think you guys got a great team. You got put together. The boys clearly love each other. They work really hard. You could tell everything just kind of flows for them on offense. So you probably see all the little things that don't quite work right, but from my perspective, everything was it seemed very smooth and very few mistakes. So great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was the first year I didn't have a preseason scrimmage,
Mm-hmm.
and it got canceled because of the Sadie's dance being moved. And then you were our first game,
Mm-hmm.
so we were fired up, man. We were ready to go, and it's just
Yeah.
been a lot of practice with ourselves and seeing what we could actually do and
Yeah.
how it would work. But yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. Now I like playing good teams. I don't mind getting beat. Well, let me say, I hate getting beat. I hate losing, but I don't mind getting beat if we are genuinely just outclassed. Like if we make a lot of dumb mistakes, that's one thing, and we did. We sure did. We made a lot of dumb mistakes. I think we could have gave you a more competitive game, but I mean, your team's disciplined and they work really hard, and like I said, everything just kind of flows well together. So it looked pretty good from our perspective for you guys. So
Thanks.
yep. All right, a couple of rapid fires real quick, and then we'll really
Yeah,
kind of dive into it. You got
sure.
any favorite books, podcasts, shows, or anything you're watching, reading right now?
Yeah, so I've been reading the Karen Slaughter, the Will Trent series.
Okay.
I saw the show on, I think it was Hulu or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh, I got to read those books. Books are always better.
Yeah.
So I started reading those. I don't have a lot of time, but the good thing is I always have 2.5 hour bus rides because we're on an island in Tallahassee. So on my bus rides, I get a little bit of that. Once lacrosse hits, I really kind of dive into Powlax and some other just coaching clips and reels
Yeah.
and just kind of dive into it. I always pick up something from somebody when I throw on those things, and then even if they're saying the same stuff I'm doing, it's reinforcement. Like, all right,
Yeah.
cool, that works. I get to see other people do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like Powlax during the season for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That all good content that he puts out there. That's really good stuff. And if you're a lacrosse fan, coach or player, and you don't know what Parallax is or you haven't checked it out, you are missing out on a wealth of information because there's a
Yeah,
ton of really, really good stuff there. You can build your entire team just from that.
for sure.
You got a favorite player, pro, college, anybody that you kind of follow? Any sport?
Man, well, I'm a diehard Michigan guy,
Yep.
so I really like Cohen. He's doing great. He's killing it for Michigan right now, but it is hard not to just love the Kavanaugh brothers.
Yeah.
When he basically tore his hamstring and just taped it up and won a national title, I earned a lot of respect for him. So I like watching as an attackman. One of the things I preach all the time is riding wins games. If you're an attackman, you want to
Mm-hmm.
score goals, you got to ride hard, and nobody does it better than Kavanaugh's. So
Yeah.
I really love watching them play.
Yeah. When I saw that game last year, on the ESPN thing before the game or whatever,
Yeah.
they had, I think it was Quint Kutsnich out there with them or whatever. And he was talking like, hey, what's your favorite drill? He had both of them out there and they're like, oh, it's the chaos drill. And he's like,
Yeah.
chaos drill? What are you talking about? And they probably just made it up just for the TV,
Yeah.
just for the episode. But they throw the ball back and forth to each other and basically from the time you catch it, you have one step to put it in the goal, and you can never put it in the goal the same way twice. And so it forces you to, no matter what position you are on the field, it forces the attackman or the shooter or whatever to find the goal. You always have to know where the goal is. So if you're, if he caught his brother looking the other way, like not looking at the goal, then he would have to try to find the goal behind him. It was kind of cool to watch. I think they probably just made it up, but it's still like if you're just out throwing the ball around versus you're like throwing with a buddy or something, do something like that instead of just, practicing straight shooting, 10 feet in
Well,
front of the goal or whatever.
I think that's the biggest difference between up north and Florida. Since I've been in Florida now, 20 something years, or almost 20 years, kids don't do that. They don't play that way. They don't do that kind of stuff. Growing up north, like we were always at a buddy's house in somebody's basement. We'd play, fiddlestick lacrosse in the basement. We'd be outside just doing trick shots, and we would do that kind of stuff all the time. And it's not quite the same here. That's a big difference. And a lot of the greats, the Stanwicks and the Powells, that's all they talk about is the backyard lacrosse, and it builds all the skills.
I think it's the difference between a lacrosse player and a kid that plays lacrosse. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do
you have a favorite player or coach that you've kind of modeled your style after? Anybody particularly you follow?
I always go back to the greatest coach I ever had was my high school wrestling coach. He was the first American to win a gold medal. After he beat me up on a regular basis, I realized this guy's amazing. He was just such a great motivator, such a great coach. And first coach I ever had that I knew truly cared. Still keep in touch with him, talk to him all the time. So I've always tried to model my coaching after him, just from that standpoint. I'm always there for the kids. If they need me, they know they can call me anytime. When kids graduate, I want them, staying in touch. All the things that he did, not at all lacrosse related, just how to be a great coach and a great human. But from a lacrosse standpoint, it's always been Petramala who I've tried to, and I think it's his bluntness of how he says things. And it was about 15 years ago, I was working a clinic and I was shadowing him, basically watching his drills. And I said to him, why don't you do it this way? And he looked at me and he goes, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would I ever do it that way? And I was like, okay, my bad, man. Stupid question. And he just went on and he explained why he does it the way he does it. But I just love that bluntness and that approach. And I'm very blunt and straight to the point. And some people don't like that, but I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, he knows what he's doing. He's confident in what he's doing. And he's going to just execute it at a high level. So from a lacrosse standpoint, Petramala.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a great choice.
Yeah.
And when you said that was reminding me of a conversation I had with some other coaches, and we were up at the Duke lacrosse coaches clinic just recently. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I being there felt like I was in the mind of a genius for 6 hours or so. But I was talking to, I asked Coach Danowski, how much time they spend on certain things, especially things like transitions. And he goes, almost none. And he was very blunt about his response. He just basically said, my guys, they know where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. Like the defense knows, our shorties are supposed to come off and the offense is supposed to get on the field and run the play, then run the fast break. And if we got a good 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, we're just going to go. Like we're just going to play lacrosse. And it wasn't super complicated. He could probably design the most complicated things you've ever seen, but he keeps it simple. And it's when you keep it simple, it's way easier to correct mistakes. And, that bluntness sometimes is really helpful because you don't have to guess what the coach is thinking.
Yeah, for sure. And then, it's always surprising to a lot of the kids how much time D1 programs spend on stick work. Like they spend a ton of time on stick work because at the end of the day, if you can't pass and catch at the highest level, you can't play.
Yeah.
And to the Duke program's point is if you don't know where to be, you're just not seeing the field. By the time you get up there, you just have to know.
You have to know.
And so they spend all their time on the stuff that the stick work, the shooting, the two-man game stuff all over the field, the pairs. That's the stuff that the time gets spent on. And I've had I've always picked the brains of those college coaches. Well, hey, why do you do so much of this? Why do you not do that? And I think over the years, I've tweaked my practices to where we're pretty efficient, and we're starting to see the dividends of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really young the last couple of years, as you said, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But now I've got, my whole team is freshmen, sophomores, and they're playing at a pretty high level because we're getting very efficient, that's what college is all about, man. They have to be efficient up there, and if they're not, they're just not competing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a team right now of all mostly freshmen and sophomores, basically.
Yeah.
What are you most excited for this season? Obviously, the young team is super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, for the last 2 years, and I never schedule weak. I always try to play a tough schedule. And when most of my starting lineup was 6th and 7th graders and then 7th and 8th graders, there was a big drop off before I got to Maclay. And that was what happened the last couple of years. It was just kind of like, we got to get through this. They're going to get their lumps, but they're going to learn, and they're going to learn how to play. And now this year, with them all being in high school, this is my first time at Maclay with no middle schooler on the varsity roster.
Yeah.
So no middle schoolers, all high school kids. And but my freshmen don't play like freshmen. So I think what I'm most excited about is just watching them continue to grow. Through a long, grueling club season, you start to see the smile come off of some kids' faces. It gets a little tough. It takes some losses. They kind of question if they still love the sport. And right now, all of those kids are constant smiles, having a great time. We're having fun at practice. So just seeing that passion, seeing them love the game and really love putting the work in, I'm excited to see where the season goes, for sure.
How do you keep them interested in the off season? So you have a club. What kind of turnover are you seeing? Like returning players? Are you keeping most of your players year over year?
Yeah, pretty much. I think every year I've lost 1 or 2 kids I thought were going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And usually they give me the same story. I've lost my love of the game, or I've lost my passion for it. And as soon as they tell me that, I'm just like, all right, well, have a good day, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to beg you. I'm not begging you. If you don't want to play, I don't want you here. My door's always open, but I'll see you, man. I got stuff to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 1 or 2 kids every year. It's been pretty standard. But I always gain 1 or 2 new kids, which is, it's kind of the give and take. Turnover's not too bad. Again, being at a small school, we share so many of the athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to wait till soccer's over and basketball's over to get all my kids out.
Right.
But other than that, turnover's been pretty consistent. It's been pretty low, so it's not something I really even think about.
Do you typically get new players during the club season or during the high school varsity season?
Usually during the high school varsity season. My club team is all the kids that are bought in, that want to get better, that want to play in college. And then the hype at Maclay for lacrosse is pretty good. The kids get really hyped up about lacrosse, and so we always convince a few of the football kids and a couple other kids that were kind of on the fence, and then they come out. This year I've got a basketball player that's never played before and 3 football players that have never played before.
Wow.
So it's kind of fun just having them out there. And they bring a new energy to the team too, because they're great athletes, but no stick skills.
Yeah, that's sometimes how it works. So what kind of things do you do to help those kids develop their stick skills? A brand new player coming onto a high school varsity team, you don't have a JV, there is no development time frame. It's like the season practice starts, and then 2 weeks later is your first game.
So they're good athletes, and they hold themselves kind of accountable because they're good athletes. I throw them to the wolves. I put them in every drill, do everything. I don't yell at them the same way I yell at the other kids, but I'm just like, oh, you're close, get over here. And then I'll pull them aside, or a coach will pull them aside and just correct little technique things. And I pretty much just tell them, watch how that kid does it, watch how that kid does it. And then after practice, stay after, hit the wall, take some shots, 15, 20 minutes, nothing long. Just get used to having a stick in your hand. I've got some really good leadership this year, and I've had a lot of kids stay with them and help them after practice, which is pretty cool. But I've found that I don't baby step it. I just throw them right in and say, here's the expectation. This is where you need to get to.
Yeah.
There is no crawling. You're on varsity. You got to learn how to run right away. And I always start them at D-Midi. And then I tell them, like, hey, if you want to score some goals, you got to learn how to pick up the ball. You got to learn how to catch the ball. And then you got to learn how to shoot it. But we throw them right to the wolves. And it usually takes about 4 or 5 games. And then they start to get antsy and want to they'll have a takeaway and then run it down the field and take a really wild shot, but they have fun with it. So
that's good. I love that they spend time after practice. I think that's how you can tell if the player is really engaged, is because they show up early. They're before practice starts, they're either hitting the wall or they're throwing the ball with their buddy, or they're practicing ground balls on their own, or they're shooting on the goal or something. And then after practice, they might be hitting the rebounder or the wall or something like that afterwards, just to get a few extra reps in before it really gets dark, or before they have to go home, before their ride comes, whatever it happens to be. You could tell also, conversely, the ones that aren't engaged, and from a coach's perspective,
Yeah.
when you see that kid who shows up like right on time, he's on time, but he didn't get there early. He didn't get any reps before practice. You could tell his mind is on something else. And then during the water break, he maybe checks his phone or something while he's grabbing a drink. How do you handle that? How do you approach that with that player? Or do you even bother? You recognize it for what it is and move on?
Yeah, well, it depends on the kid, whether I
Mm-hmm.
approach it or not. I have a lot of very brutally honest conversations with why you're not playing. Because playing time is always the number one issue, right?
Right.
Every kid thinks they deserve to play. Every parent thinks they deserve to play. And I always just say, look, and so I keep a depth chart in my office, and we update it as coaches after every practice. So after practice, we go into my office, we update the depth chart, and then the kids know they have about 15 to 20 minutes after practice, they can see where they stand.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, when I started doing it, I got a lot of pushback at Maclay. Let me tell you,
From admin or staff, or from the players? Or
from parents, pretty much parents.
Yeah.
Admin thought I was a little rambunctious doing it. They were just like, or ambitious. They were like, "Why would you do that?" And I said, "Listen, as a player, when I got to college and I played, that was the best motivator to see that I was fourth. Well, I wanted to be third. Well, I got to beat the guy that's third. I want to be second. I got to beat the guy that's second.
Yeah.
It's black and white as can be. There's a guy ahead of me. I have to get better than that kid. And so I've always done that. And now the kids, they love it. They hate it, but they know.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when the kids are not where they think they are, they come to me. Coach, what do I have to do? And it's gone away from complaining to now, I've kind of built the culture where I wanted it to be. But now it's, Coach, how do I move up? What do I need to do? And I just say, like, hey, the kid ahead of you, he's still out there on the wall. He's not worried about the depth chart. He's putting in work.
Yeah.
And you're in here looking at a depth chart. Why don't you go work? And, it's pretty cut and dry. So.
Yeah. That reminds me too, like, putting in work after practice. When I went to watch one of my players, one of my former players who's now playing at Huntingdon, I think it's a D3 school up in
awesome. Yep.
Up in Montgomery, Alabama. And before their game started, the girls had just finished their practice, and I noticed that the coach sent all the girls to the wall. They were all hitting the wall, and it seemed like they were there forever. And even the goalie, everyone's hitting the wall, right hand, left hand, up, down, whatever you could think of. And it's just like ball after ball after ball after ball. I asked my player, and I was like, they've been doing this for a while. Like, it's a solid, 20, 30 minutes, and they're still hitting the wall. Even the goalie, you know what I mean? And he goes, yeah, coach, their stick skills aren't great right now, so coach makes them do 1,000 wall ball every day after practice. Yeah. I mean, you talk, like, when you think about it, okay, 50 wall ball, you could probably knock that out. If you could throw and catch pretty well, you can knock out 50 in, just a couple of minutes.
1,000?
1,000?
Yeah.
That's no joke. Yeah. Your arms are tired. You've already had practice. Your arms are smoked. Like, it's just, but I mean, when it's muscle memory, then it just becomes natural.
That's, the hardest thing for these kids to learn is you fall back on your habits.
Yeah.
So if you have the muscle memory, when you're tired, you're sore, there's controversy, you're going to fall back to doing the right thing if that's what your habit is. And the only way you develop that is really, there's no shortcut. You just got to do the work.
Yeah. So. There's no elevator to success. It's one step at a time.
For sure.
What kind of things, knowing the team that you have, what kind of things have you done to prepare for this season?
Well, the big thing is, since they're so young, I started the year asking every kid what they wanted out of their lacrosse career. Like, what is their ultimate end game goal? And that's really important for me as a coach, because I need to know how I have to coach them. If a kid tells me they just want to have fun playing high school, great. I'm going to have fun coaching you. I'm not going to yell at you. Your expectation is going to be way less. But when kids tell me they want to play Division I, Division II, any level for that matter, I have to coach them accordingly. One of the things that I've taken a lot of pride in actually is when my kids go to play in college, they usually last all 4 years. They don't get run out, and so many kids don't make it anymore because college coaching is so much harder than we are because we're not allowed to be hard on them the same way college coaches are. And so I'm really, really hard on the kids that tell me they want to play in college. So the biggest thing I do to get ready for the year is just kind of figure out how I'm going to coach each kid a little bit differently, what each role of my staff members are going to be, and then practice plan and just get after it. But
Yeah.
if I don't, when I was younger and a newer coach, I didn't put as much emphasis on that, and I would have probably a few more kids quit every year because I was just so hard on them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but why am I being hard on a kid that is just playing for high school fun? Like, I can't be the same kind of hard on that kid as the kid that's going to go play at, Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So learning that, I think, is important because it allows me to coach each kid to what they want. And if I know what they want, then I can help them get there.
Yeah. Now, is that a one-on-one interview, or is that just kind of like okay? And so, do you schedule this time with the player? I'm interested because I think a lot of people who listen to this are coaches or they're parents of players, and they need to understand how valuable those conversations are with a coach. Because as a coach, we have a very unique perspective. We're not their teachers, so we technically are accountable to the admins, but not in the same way the teachers are. We're not their parents. We're not their buddies. We have a very unique perspective that we can approach. We all go into it with single-mindedness goals, and we have a lot more, I don't want to say leeway or flexibility, but we have a lot more resources, I think, sometimes we can use and we can draw upon to really motivate a player and help players too. Because, I always would tell parents during the first parent meeting of the season when I was coaching on the club side, it's like, if you're having a problem with your kid at home, let us know if it's something that we can help with, because we want to be part of the solution. If your kid has what's popular, vaping right now, vaping is a big deal. And these kids, they find it, they get into it, and it wreaks havoc on their developing lungs. It is the absolute worst thing they could possibly do. And the kids don't know any better. They just think it's cool and trendy and edgy or whatever. And I have personal experience because one of my own kids was vaping without me knowing. And when we did finally find out, took the vape, grounded him, all that stuff, but it damaged him permanently. Like, a couple of months later, he's in the hospital with a collapsed lung. And in fact, both of his lungs ended up collapsing. It could have killed him.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
So when as coaches, we could potentially help with even situations like that, because like, well, you might not see it, but that kid, he might pop that thing out in practice. And I guarantee you the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put that thing under my foot and that kid's going to start running.
Yeah.
And the next thing I'm doing is calling your parents.
Yeah, I think that relationship with the parents is really important. I've got a lot of coach friends that hate talking to parents, but I think you nailed it. We see the kids in a different light.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to know more about what they're doing than sometimes what their parents do.
Yeah.
And it's a fine line, right? Like, do you tell, you don't like tell on the kids or their parents, but it's you and the parents collectively trying to do what's best for that kid.
Yeah.
And nobody coaches for the money. I mean, we do it because we love the sport, we love the kids, and we love the development.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's almost our duty to do that stuff with the parents and make it collectively, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, a kid tells an off-color joke or something like that, I'm probably not going to say anything. That's kids being kids. A kid makes a racist remark, or he admits to doing something that he shouldn't with drugs or alcohol or vaping or smoking or something like that. That's something I'm going to definitely address with the parents. Like, we can't have that type of toxicity on our team. Like, that can't be a thing for a team that's unified, working towards like championships, or even just coming together as a team and trying to win some games.
Well, you'd mentioned right at the beginning of that, you kind of had said something like, what do you do to motivate the kids?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do one-on-ones with them.
Mm-hmm.
I've got an office, which is awesome. And after school till practice starts, there's about 30 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll schedule, especially the first week, like 2 kids, like 15 minutes, next kid 15 minutes. All right, get out to practice. And I just knock them all out. But one of the things I ask them is, what motivates you? I ask the kids that because it's better for them to tell me than me guess. And I'll give you an example. So one of my attackmen, he's a freshman, number 5. He had 6 the other day.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that he said motivated him was he wants to be on the record board. So I printed out the record board and I said, put this in your room somewhere. Here's a printed out copy of our record board. I said, you're an attackman. Here's all the attackman records at Maclay. Here, look at them.
Wow.
Now you know what you have to do. Like, if that's what motivates you, now you know where you need to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he told me before our game, I was just walking around the locker room like, hey, you guys ready? You guys ready? He goes, Coach, I looked at the record board. I got a good feeling about this one. I'm like, sweet, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
And he had 6 goals, 2 assists.
Yeah,
I'm
there
like,
you go.
That's a heck of a game.
Yeah.
But so I actually asked the kids, what motivates you? What is it? You want to make your parents happy? Do you want to be on a record book? Do you want to be an all area player, an all American? And if you know those things, then, and I write them down too. I write them down. Each kid has a little index card and I just throw them in a drawer. And then when stuff starts going bad, I pull the index card out and I give it to the kid. I go, hey, remember this? And that always just straightens them right back up.
Do you follow up with them mid-season at all, or at the end of the season? How do you do your check-ins?
Yeah, mid-season if needed.
Mm-hmm.
End of the season, we kind of do like a postseason breakdown. How do you think it went? What can you improve on? Where do you need to get better? Are you still doing what you need to do? Could you have done more? Those kind of things. Depending on grade level and skill level, really determines how far I go with that. But yeah, that's I definitely do an end of the year check-in. Mid-season if I need to motivate.
How long have you been doing that? Have you been doing that your whole coaching career, or did you start that recently?
No, actually, we have an amazing strength and conditioning coach at Maclay, and that's something. The writing it down and keeping it, that was something that he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's awesome. I used to meet with kids. I've been meeting with kids for as long as I can remember, but I never wrote it down. I never had something like tangible that I could give back to them.
Mm-hmm.
I might take some notes on scratch paper, but I probably lost those. The index cards are great because when they're struggling or they need a little kick in the butt, you just show them what they said. And this is what you want, man. I'm not the bad guy here. You said you wanted this.
Yeah. I love that idea.
Yeah. And then they usually get right back to it.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular, I think that's a really good technique. Is there anything else in particular that you think has sort of helped develop you as a coach in these last, you said you've been coaching at Maclay for 8 years?
Yeah, this is year 8.
Yeah. So what has helped develop you? What kind of things do you do to sort of improve your coaching and your knowledge of the game?
I think just, I've become more of a sponge to coaching. When I was younger and much cockier, I thought I knew everything and I've done this. I played with these guys. I know all this. I know all that. I actively seek learning to get better now. I wish I would have done that a lot longer ago. But yeah, now if I'm around other people, I try not to talk as much. I try to listen. With my son doing the whole big circuit of lacrosse recruiting, I'm around a ton of great minds all the time. And I'll just go up and ask them, like, hey, why'd you do that drill? Hey, why are you doing that? I liked how that worked. What's your purpose behind it? And people are willing to share. And then that just has expanded my practice planning, my repertoire of drills. And I think now, because I've learned so much more, I can pretty much overcome most of the issues our kids are having, whether it's passing and catching or a 2-man game or they don't know how to run a mumbo or whatever it is. I've been doing it for so long, but I don't think I have the answers. Now I've gone and looked for other people to help me with those. And that's really been helpful for sure.
Yeah. I think that's a great option. And something as lacrosse coaches that there's so many resources out there available. I don't know if you happen to look over and look at my warm up for our defense at all, but every single defense warm up we do, I have stolen from a college at some point.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't claim any originality to it. There's some from Duke in there. There's some from Jacksonville in there. There's some from an MCLA school in Idaho in there that my sons go to. I saw that and I was like, hey, I think that's going to be a really great draw. I can totally see how it's going to work. It incorporates footwork and sit work and ground ball and passing, like wicket get and communication. Like all the best parts about all the important parts about defense is all wrapped up in this one little warm up drill that we can do very easily. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what you found helps too, and is if I have stuff that I like and I
Hmm.
think it's great,
Hmm.
I'll give it to somebody else and say, "Hey, tell me what you think about this."
Yeah.
Like I won't preface it with, "I love doing this. This is awesome." Like
Hmm.
I'll just give to another coach buddy, "Hey, tell me what you think of this practice plan."
Hmm.
And they always give me feedback that is not what I think it's going to
Yeah.
be. Usually it's, "I'd probably cut this out." I'm like, "Oh, crap, that's my favorite drill. Why are we
Yeah.
cutting that one out?" And he's like, "I'd cut this one out. You know, it's midweek. You do." But you take
Hmm.
that advice and you listen to that and you're like, "Oh, okay, that's a different perspective." And it just kind of gives you, because when I was younger and I first started coaching, I would beat drills to death if I wasn't getting what I wanted out of it. But now, if something's not working, I just flip and go to the next thing. And I'm 100% okay with completely just, it's not working today. Next drill,
Yeah.
next drill, next
Yeah.
drill. And a lot of that's because other coaches have basically told me, hey, when you do this, well, then go to this or do that or do this. And you can't be afraid to just, mix it up and switch. And
Yeah.
you can't fall in love with everything you're doing because, you got to keep growing.
Yeah. I love that. I love being able to hand something off to somebody and say, like, tell me how you would improve this. And so when you're putting a practice plan together, I'll tell you, there's two real trains of thought, and there's obviously the middle ground. But one train of thought is you have coaches that design practice plans down to the minute, and there is a specific reason why every drill is happening at the time that it's happening, and they're very it makes perfect sense to them. It might not make sense to everybody, but it makes perfect sense to them. And so it's a timeline style drill. And then there's other coaches that do theme days drill. You might have like man down Monday or transition Tuesday or weekend Wednesday, and it's just the players don't necessarily have to have a practice plan for something like that. There's a lot of flexibility in there, but they know when they show up to practice on Monday, they're going to be working man down stuff. They're going to be working EMO. They're going to be working their penalty recoveries, their penalty transitions, things like that. And is that something you've ever done, or are you a practice plan
Yeah.
type guy?
So I used to be more of the latter and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of, hey, on Mondays we're doing this, on Tuesdays we're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I have since transitioned to more of a practice plan guy,
Yeah.
but it's more of a loose practice plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to practice for 2.5 hours with water breaks built in, and usually the water break was, all right, coaches, now what are we going to do next, or how do you like
Mm-hmm.
this, or all right, we're going to do this drill next, and it was just a lot of wasted time. Now I do hour and 45-minute practices. I don't do water breaks. We put water stations or water bottles around the field,
Yeah.
and they can get water whenever they want, but I don't
Yeah.
break at all. So I just go pretty much from drill to drill to drill, and I have a purpose behind it, but it's kind of team, like scout oriented right now. At the beginning of the season, it's all stick work and drills and all that stuff. But now it's like we've got 3 games this week, so each day we're going to do a little bit for each team we're going to play. And so we'll drill it, and about 5 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes usually per drill. And if it's not working, I'll just go on to the next one and just keep going. But
Mm-hmm.
what I found by doing that, the hour and 45 minutes in and out, is the kids at the end of practice are more likely to stay after. They're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to shoot some, hit the wall, do any of those things, because they're not like, I don't know, brain dead from a long practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been nice, but I like the practice plan stuff because I have to go in knowing that I'm accomplishing stuff that I need to accomplish.
Do you frame your practices like everything's sort of a competition? Like you divide the guys up and you're like six in, you got dark and light jerseys, or you have offense versus defense, and then whoever wins, like you give them a prize. Like, hey, if you win, you don't have to put the goals away at the end of practice or something.
Yeah, so I have like a duty schedule that I give all the kids that rotates. So like one week the freshmen will do the field cleanup, the next week it'll be the sophomores, then the juniors, then the seniors, and cleaning the locker. I have 4 different duty things they have to do, so that just rotates. But I really do try to build in a lot of competition, and it helps that my defensive coach is very competitive, and he talks a lot of smack to me during practices when the defense gets a stop, and so I'll talk smack when he gets a stop or when we score. And the kids like that. They feed into it.
Yeah.
We compete heavily at practice. My big thing with the team is I want our practices to be tougher than games. And if our
Yeah.
practices are harder than games, then games become super fun.
Yeah.
And if we can get to that point, 4 years ago at Maclay, I had like 6 kids that all went on to play in college, 3 D1.
Wow.
Those kids were That's how practice was every day. It
Mm.
was just everybody was competing. It was super high level, and we pushed each other. And this group, because they were a lot younger, we're finally starting to get to that. And there's some battles at practice, and but it's good. I mean, I don't do a lot of offense versus defense as much as this drill. We're competing. Like you're competing against the guy next to you in everything. And when they're not, I always make them do some really arbitrary thing, like go grab a rock from the courtyard and bring it back to me. But what? Because it's like that's like a half-mile jog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you were slacking in that drill, so you got a lot of time to go think about if you can work harder. Go
Yeah.
get me a rock.
Yeah.
And then they just jog off, and then they can start competing next time they come back. But do stuff like that.
I love that. I love that. There are some coaches out there too. I've seen this a lot more, especially on the college side, where they'll put a timer on the scoreboard for every single drill. And what it does is it forces the guys, they're always working against the clock. And so it creates sort of an artificial game clock for them. And it's just like, the guy at the team at Jacksonville University, they do this. And when that clock stops, it resets and it starts going again. And wherever they're at in the drill, they stop and move on to the next thing. It's over. Like you had your chance, you missed it. It's over. We have to move on. We don't have time to catch you up.
Yep.
And,
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. We have a portable one of those at Maclay, and it broke right before the season.
No.
And this was my first year I was going to use it because we practice out on a backfield, so I have no other clock system. But football does that, and I coach football as well. And it's awesome. I mean, so I'm the running backs coach, and I have my practice plan. And I know when I hear that buzzer go off, I'm going to the next drill. When that buzzer goes out, next drill. Love that mentality. I wanted to use that this year, and it's not working right now, but hopefully I'll get to it.
You got to convince the admins to buy you a new one.
Exactly.
Can we shift gears a little bit, and can we talk about some of the preparation that you've helped with in terms of both getting your son ready and getting some of your former players ready for playing at the next level? Because I think that's a goal of a lot of the people that listen and tune into this. And you said something early on that is really important, and I don't know if you saw, but last week we interviewed Clark and Noah Haas, who both played at like NAIA schools and were amazing, amazing athletes, all sorts of accolades. And they were the absolute epitome of you don't have to play D1 to be competitive. Go to a school that you love. So what kind of things do you do and do you say when you're talking to players and when you're talking to families, because I know you do, about how to prepare for playing at the next level of lacrosse?
Well, so I keep a list of every kid I've helped get recruited, and on the list, I put the name of the school, but I don't really put what division it is. I used to. I got rid of the divisions a while ago, because now I tell the kids, I go, listen, here's my running list of every kid I've helped get into college. It doesn't matter what division they played. They went to college to play lacrosse. They lived out a dream. That's the goal. That's amazing. Nobody cares if it's NAIA, D1, D2, D3, MCLA. If you're playing lacrosse at another level, you're having a great freaking time. So that's really the goal. The number one thing, and I preach this with parents and I preach it with the kids, is they have to be held accountable. Accountability to everything. And I preach all the time, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you tell me you want to play at the next level, well, did you eat breakfast? Did you show up to the morning lifts? Because we work out in the morning before school. Do you do your homework? Do you ask questions? Do you have zeros in class? Because if you have zeros in class, you're not gonna, like in my mind, and I'll tell the kids, if you're got a C in a class and 4 missing assignments, I'm not gonna tell a college coach you could play for him. You don't handle what you're supposed to handle.
What's the first thing a college coach asks you when they ask about a player? How are his grades? How's his grades?
Academics.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that's really the biggest thing when it comes to that next level talk. Is at any level you want to play, you have to hold yourself accountable. And I'm here to help you do it. I'm here to help teach you. These are the struggles I have with my son right now. But it's great. And like for Sean, I mean, he's a goalie. I've coached now 2 goalies that have gone Division I, about 3 or 4 that have gone Division II, and a couple more that have gone like D3 NAIA. So I've coached all those kids. And all those kids have some very similar traits. And most kids that play at the next level have the same work ethic, the same mentality. They love the grind. They love to put the work in. And if you get to that, then getting to the next level is easy. Oh, I wouldn't say easy, but there's a spot for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. You earn a seat at the table.
Yeah.
It's your
Well,
job
and
to keep it, but you earn a seat at the
yeah.
table.
So many kids, it's easy to make excuses, and their parents will make excuses. Well, he wasn't feeling good. I don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares he wasn't feeling good. Like, who cares? Like, I don't feel good right now. Who cares? Like, nobody cares about that stuff. So just be accountable, show up, handle your business. And the one thing I tell all the kids, especially the ones if they want to play at the next level, I tell them, you're not always going to be your best, but you have to always give me your best.
Yeah.
If your best today is only 50%, I better have that full 50%.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all you have, because you're sick, you whatever, then you better just give me that full 50. And if you can do that, then I can vouch for you. I can talk to college coaches, and I can tell them that this kid is one hell of a hard worker, and you're going to love him. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And as coaches, I know you're the same way. I am not going to tell a college coach that a player is good, that they're competitive, and that they work really hard when I know that they don't. Like I am not going to stake my reputation on that.
Nope.
It's not personal to the kid, but it's very personal to me. Like I want that coach to call me again. And so if you're asking me for a letter or you're asking me for a recommendation, then you better be showing up to practice on time, or at least maybe early. You better keep your grades up. You have to give me something to work with, because if you're getting a 2.0 grade point average, you meet the bare minimums, you know that you can miss 3 practices and still get a letter, and you missed up to 3 practices because you had a little cough, or you got detention after school because you misbehaved. You're not giving me as a coach a lot to work with. I have to have I got to have something. And also, if I'm looking at my whole roster and I've got a college coach asking, hey, I need an attackman. Like, I got to have one now. The one I had was like, he's not coming to school anymore. And so what do you got? Like, who do you have? It's like, well, I've got, and I start looking at my attackman list. And next thing I know, it's like, well, that guy doesn't work very hard. So I'm not going to recommend him. I'm not going to say, hey, you should take this kid. I'm going to say, I don't have anybody for you.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's hard for the kids because they don't quite understand it, and they have to have that mindset shift on their own, or it's just us yelling at them. But once they have it, I mean, I had a kid a few years ago. I don't know if you remember Matt Weingartner, but he ended up playing at Marquette. Great kid. And when he came to me sophomore year, he said, "Coach, I want to play in college." And I said, "Great, that's awesome. Where do you want to play?" And he's like, "I want to go Division One." And I said, D2? He's like, "No, Division One." I was like, D3? And he's like, "Coach, I want to go Division One." And I said, "Matt, we have 3 lifts a week, and that's all you do." I said, "Practice ends and you leave." I go, "If you want to go Division One," I said, "every time I drive by Maclay, you should be on that wall. Every time I walk in the weight room, you should be in there." I said, "If you can do that, you'll be Division One." I go, "It's not a secret. Paul Rabel talks about it. You just got to take 1,000 shots, just shoot, just do it." And something clicked with him that worked.
Mm-hmm.
I kid you not, for the next 2 years, he was always on the wall, always in the weight room, 6 days a week in the weight room, always on the wall. I think he even lifted on Christmas Day. And next thing you know, guess what? Played Division I lacrosse.
I love it.
And it was awesome. But he was one of the few kids that I said, well, here's what it takes. Here's the path. Now go do it. And if you do it, good things will happen. So, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I think kids like that are sometimes few and far between. But when you have them,
it's awesome.
As a coach, you feel very blessed. It's just like, man, this kid's definitely going places, and I can't wait to see their success story.
Well, I'll brag on my kid a little bit.
Yeah, you should.
He played varsity as a 6th grader.
Oh, you remember?
Man, he was tiny, but he was good. He was good. And all of a sudden, we're getting ready to go into 7th grade, and he said, "Dad, I want to work out." And I said, "Okay, we have a really good strength coach." So I talked to the strength coach. I go, "When can I get him in here?" And he said, "The only time I'm available is 5:30 in the morning." And I'm like, oh boy, all right. So I tell Sean, and I'm thinking he's not going to want to do it. And Sean goes, "Okay, will you take me?" And of course I got to say yes. I can't say no. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yeah. I said, "But you have to get yourself up. You have to get yourself ready. And then when you're ready to go, I'll take you." And I swear to God, his whole 7th grade year, he woke me up at 5 o'clock and I said, "Dad, I'm ready to go." And I said, man, it was his own drive that did that. And he did it 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And then last year was his 8th grade year. Same thing. And now, my rule for the team is, for the high school kids, is we have 3 lifts they have to get per week.
Mm-hmm.
That's the minimum. And when I see the workout sheet and all the kids that have 3, well, those are the kids that don't play a whole lot. All the kids that have 4 and 5, those are the kids that play more. I mean, it's just direct correlation. And yeah, I mean, he was just very self-motivated, and it's
Yeah.
hard to get those kids. But Sean also, he wants to play Division One. He's
Mhm.
like, I'm going Division One, and he's like, I need to get bigger, I need to get stronger, and
Mhm.
that's my job to do that. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Well, I
It's
think
cool when
if
they do it.
knowing him, knowing his work ethic, and obviously knowing the pedigree, I know if he wants to do it, he will. I think he is going to be successful wherever he goes to school. He's going to be a very, very good player and a good pickup for whichever coach gets him. And like you said, they're a really good school. Like D1 is obviously what most of these kids want, but they don't realize like you can go to a D3 school. Like you go to a school like Salisbury or something like that. It's a
Yeah,
D3 school and they are so good. Like I would be willing to bet that those guys could compete at the D1 level if they wanted to.
yep.
Um,
Well, and then schools like Tufts too. Like you come out
yeah,
of Tufts, you
yeah,
you're set for your whole life. You got great connections. It's
yeah.
awesome.
Well,
Yeah,
and I know my two younger boys, they play for an MCLA school and a really good MCLA school, by the way. They finished number 8 in the nation last year. And they're going to go Division 2 next year. So this is their last year in
nice,
MCLA. And, I talked to them before the season started, and they're just like, we are all single minded, focused on winning our national championship. Yeah, we realize it's not D1, D2, D3, whatever, NAI, it's MCLA, but we want to win it.
awesome. Yeah,
And
it's awesome.
that's what they're focused on. And I love that for them because they set a goal, they're working to achieve it, and they're really, really good. The team is so good.
That's awesome.
They're one of those
Yeah,
teams that you just can't slow them down. You
yeah,
might beat them, but it's only because you're faster and better and you make fewer mistakes. And they don't make a lot of mistakes, having watched them play. Really good face-off guys, really good goalie, really good defense, and their offense is just so fluid. It's just like every single person, every single offensive player is a dodger, and they could be a feeder, and they could be a finisher at
nice.
any point in the offense. It's so fun to watch, and seeing them play last year against Air Force,
Man,
and they played the Air Force club team. Of course, Air Force has
yeah,
a D1 team, and so all those guys on the club team are just guys who probably used to play D1, and then they might be seniors. They got a pilot slot or something. They don't want to get injured by playing too competitively, so now they're running and gunning at the NCLA level, and they are really, really good too. And so these are the other teams that they're competing with at that high level, and it's so
yeah,
much fun to watch. And the point is, you can be successful, and you can have a lot of fun playing lacrosse at any program you go to. You just
100%.
have to make it count for yourself.
Yep, for sure. And if you learn the work ethic in high school, then
Yeah,
it's easy. You just go and have
absolutely.
fun.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Awesome. Well,
for
if
sure.
is there anything you wish you did more of as a coach, or that you did less of especially in your younger years?
Well, when I was playing, I wish I would have worked on my offhand more.
That's what everybody says.
Man, it's like I was an attackman that was all right-handed. I mean, I got slippery with it. I played box. I did all that stuff, so I was good with it. But man, I didn't develop a left hand till I started coaching, um, which is crazy. But yeah, it's. I think the biggest thing is when I was younger, I wish I was more of a student of the game. Just really just studying the game. I mean, now when I watch lacrosse, college, pro, box, any of that stuff, I try to break it down. I try to
Mm,
learn what they're doing. I try to figure out if I can come up with new drills. I'm a big student of coaching in the game now, and I wish I did that when I was younger. I feel
yeah.
like I could have been better when I was younger if I had done that. And I'll tell you, like Tom Izzo, basketball coach,
Yeah.
I get a lot of drills from him, basketball drills that I convert to lacrosse drills,
Okay.
and they're awesome. I mean, he has some defensive rotation drills that will blow your mind, and I use them to teach how to rotate on defense, off ball rotating and
Hmm.
protecting the paint. I mean, it's all the same terminology, and it's
Yeah.
just it's great. And I wish I would have like made those connections and learned some of that stuff sooner.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably, if I could do anything, go back and do it again, I would stop thinking I knew stuff. But I think that's the plague of every early 20s person.
sure.
Person in their 20s is, oh, I know what I'm doing. He's kind of I wish I'd have learned more.
Well, it's not just early 20s. I think it's any coach early in their career. Like your first year, I think it's just a fire hose
Yeah.
of information. And so you realize like you're not at your best. And then the next few years, you have a little bit of knowledge. And I think that can be dangerous in the sense that you think you know more than you actually know. And
Yeah.
like you said, you've been involved in lacrosse for, would you say 35 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my 11th involved in
Yeah.
lacrosse. So I am so far behind you in that aspect of it, but I could not agree with you more that if I could go back in time also and teach myself one thing is be a better student of the game. Like just learn the concepts better and focus on the basics. Don't get too complicated, don't get too jazzy or anything. Just try to keep it simple and have fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's you can never know too much, and then knowing what to do with what you know is the next part. But you can never learn too much about it. And
Yeah.
if you pick up one nugget from this guy or that guy, I mean, and it makes you a better coach, that's huge.
Yeah.
I would say also early in my career, I tried to force systems on my guys. Like, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to run. And now I create systems around the talent that my players have.
Yeah.
So, like, but again, I couldn't have done that if I didn't know a whole lot more about lacrosse from studying and learning and picking other guys' brains and stuff like that. I try to build what we do. Like last year, we ran a zone defense. We don't do that this year. I could not run a zone. I could not run man-to-man last year. We were too small, too slow. So I had to install a zone. And this year, we're man-to-man. And, offensively, it's what are our players' strengths, and let's play to them.
Yeah.
With different sets and formations. And when I was younger, I used to, this is what we do. This is how we're going to do it. And if you can't do it, you don't play. And, that might work at the college level, but at the high school level, that was a big mistake.
Yeah. And at the college level, I think sometimes coaches get hired because of their system. Like you mentioned Bill Belichick earlier. He had a system.
Well, and they can recruit it too.
John Danowski's got a system.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what can we expect from Maclay Lacrosse this year and from Justin and Sean Van Tassel?
Well, I think Sean's going to have a monster year.
I think so too.
He had 275 saves last year,
My God.
and as an 8th grader.
Yeah.
And he right now, I think he's like 6th all time in the state of Florida for saves. So I'm expecting him to have, a lot of big games. My goal is, single digit goals every game. If we can keep teams to single digits, we'll have a great season. I'm anticipating a regional run. At some point we'll face up against bowls. That'll be a tough one, but push deeper into the region. But the good news is, again, I only graduate 2 kids.
Wow.
So it's not, that's the good news. There's a couple others that are first year players that aren't really playing, but I lose 2 kids and everybody's back. So we're going to make a good run. We're going to have a good fill. And I think Sean's going to win us a few games, but it'll be nice. It'll be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see it. I don't know that our team is going to be good enough to join you in regionals there, but I always say just because I want to win doesn't mean I want you to lose. So I hope you guys, when you and I play, man. I hope you lose. I hope I win when you and I play together. Yeah. But when you're playing and you're out there against those other tough opponents, man, I hope you absolutely crush it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I count you as a friend, and I think you're a great coach. So this has been a lot of fun for me to kind of pick your brain, and hopefully it's been good for everybody listening right now. Real quick, I got 2 final questions. Who else do I need to interview? Who else needs to jump on here?
Well, are you trying to keep it in your area, or are you trying to?
I mean, I jumped outside my area for you a little bit, so
I'd say Jonathan Montez at Oak Hall.
Okay.
He's a great guy. I'll get you all his contact info.
Please.
He and I are really good friends. Clay, Oak Hall are pretty big rivals.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great young team, and his kid's a senior, getting ready to go play at Rollins. He's committed to go play at Rollins. And again, he's a guy. We're kind of rivals in everything. He's an Ohio State guy. I'm a Michigan guy. He's Oak Hall. I'm Maclay. He's Gainesville. I'm Tallahassee. But he's a really, really good coach. I had the pleasure of coaching with him on the Nike national team, the 2025 team a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we won the whole thing. We beat Long Island, beat Baltimore, beat New York. And so coaching with him for that experience awesome. I learned a lot from him. He and I worked really well together. And I think he's just a great lacrosse guy for the state of Florida. So
Okay.
I'd put him on your list for sure.
I will, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. And then last question, if someone wants to get a hold of you to talk lacrosse, to talk recruiting, or to talk Maclay, how do they find you? What's the best way to contact you?
Well, any of the school websites, my school email is pretty much what I check the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's jvantassel@maclay.org, Instagram _VT, or through the Maclay Instagram, and then 850 Lacrosse Club. So we've got a website and contact information on there as well. But yeah, I'm an open book. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm always available for anything, anytime.
Is it okay if I drop all that stuff in the comments for the podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll do all that. So, listen, once again, I thank you for being here and being a part of this. This is a lot of fun for me. And as you know, lacrosse is a little bit of a family. And so, like I said, I count you as a friend. For sure. And I'm grateful for your friendship. And I look forward to the next opportunity. And once again, just because I want to win doesn't mean I want you to lose.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, man. Hey,
thanks.
Everybody, thanks for listening. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to find us also, you can find us on any social media at First City Lax. That's 1ST City Lax. And outside of that, we will see you next time. Get your reps in. Let's go.
If you like what you hear, drop us a like and follow wherever you downloaded this podcast from, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at First City Lax. Check back every week for more content. Thank you for being a part of the First City Lacrosse Podcast.